Hello and welcome to Colleague 7 Sprint Review for 17.09.03. This is for the development undertaken between the 20th of September to the 3rd of October. Okay, so starting with the sprint goal, and we've been planning the upgrade of colleagues' memory cache and deployment architecture to support and enable further performance improvements. This is whilst refining the product based on client demand. Looking at the high-level items and to explain further, in this sprint we've delivered the MVC Bundles enhancement. Bundles is the background update which ensures that new builds of Colleague 7 are correctly versioned when distributed. This should then negate the scenario where there's a need to clear cached files from your browser or hard refresh on a page. Bundles also carries with it improvements to performance and security. We've delivered a prototype designed to upgrade Colleague's memory cache. This will be using Redis, which is a Azure module for advanced memory management, and again brings with it improvements to performance and functionality, specifically targeting the admin area, but with scope to offer gains throughout the system. There were some high priority items relating to the search which have now been resolved. This was to do with the view text and remove options. There is now the option to delete checklist items within the checklist area in the admin. The creation of tasks now gives you the option to set the date and time of the reminder, as well as incorporating an autocomplete list in the subject. We've investigated how to go about including the candidate name in the CV download notification message when using the inline CV links, and this can be expected in the not too distant future. And there were some minor bug fixes to resolve based on other client feedback. We'll now go through a short demonstration on the key features from this sprint. Okay, so the first area we'll go through is the update that's been made to the task creation process in terms of setting a reminder date and time. Just as a reminder on how that, no pun intended, just a reminder as to how that process is run from the create history area. You obviously have the area where you would enter in your history text and set your history type, but you also have the option to either create a diary entry or create a task or do both. And on the issue of creating a task now, where before you would set the reminder being a numeric of minutes from the due date, and it was taking the start or the reminder time as being midnight, you now can set, on the basis of setting a reminder, you now can set the reminder date, and you also have the reminder time as well. In terms of the setting on whether or not you can set the reminder as yes or no, that is actually a default setting of user settings that you can see has been added here. So you can set whether or not the reminder, when it asks you to set the reminder when you're creating a task here, and also there's the set time of when that reminder is done as well. The default time for the task is also set there as well. So let's just cancel out that, and then if I go back to creating a task, you can see that it's there at 9 o'clock now. The reminders come up by default of yes, and also the subject field has a autocomplete option as well, which is essentially the same as it was treated with the regarding drop-down list that you can see there. So just for aid of efficiency in terms of completing different items there, and then you can obviously save the history record and obviously in turn create the task. Within the tasks area, it then obviously pulls through the various different tasks that you have, and obviously the reminder times are now at appropriate times rather than late at night post the due date of the task being created, which was the issue that was raised before. On the subject of the tasks area, the point that was raised in the last sprint review relating to the ability to edit the existing task, just as a point of transparency, essentially, we've obviously raised this, as have many others, in terms of the inability to edit tasks that have been created through the third-party API graph that we're using with Microsoft. Essentially that graph is in the later stages of it being essentially a beta setup. So we are having to obviously wait on Microsoft to rectify that. But as soon as that has been delivered, we'll obviously apply that update so that you can edit existing tasks that you've created as well. But we're waiting on Microsoft with that, and we'll let you know as soon as that's been applied. Okay, the next thing to cover is the updates that were made to the search area. Specifically, if we start with view text, um, this relates to whenever doing a search term using text criteria against any of the searching mechanisms. Essentially, as long as you're doing a search term, this would affect you if you're using then view text to view where that text is then found within the associated documents or notes areas, say. So in here, if we do a specific search term of account manager and London or Surrey, say as an example, appreciate that's fairly basic, but this is obviously just for the example. We then show the results of the records that have been found on that. And if we highlight a record and hit view text, whereas before what was happening is if you only had a single search phrase, then it would be found in view text. But if you had multiple search phrases, of course you would, then when you hit on view text, it would fail to highlight any text within that document. So what we've done is applied an update so that it will highlight individual elements of the text phrases that are being searched. Or if you put your search terms, the specific things that you're looking for within speech marks, at that point when doing a view text, it's going to highlight that specific search phrase that you're looking for there, as well as obviously the other phrases that are within the and or statements that perhaps you might include as part of that text phrase. So that's how to use that functionality there now. So if you put the search phrase within a speech mark, then it will obviously highlight all of that word. If it's outside of the speech mark, or if you don't put speech marks in there, it's going to highlight any instance of an individual word within the search term highlighted within the document. And that's just how that functionality is now working within that area. Next point to cover is on the remove option within the results. So again, another bug that was essentially found when manipulating the results that you get from your search on highlighting specific records and looking to, from the selected items, hit remove from results. Those records essentially weren't being successfully removed. So that update's now been applied as well. So you'll notice the found count changes. So on highlighting a record and selecting it to be removed from the results, you'll see that obviously the record is removed and the found count is updated accordingly. Next point to cover relates to the checklists area that's within the admin area. So here you can see checklists. When you click on that, it will give you a list of the different checklists that have been set up against either candidate, requirement candidate, or placement. And essentially what was the situation prior was that you had the option to create a new checklist item, but you actually didn't have an option to delete an existing checklist item, which has now been added. So if you highlight a checklist item, hit delete, it will warn you, because obviously if you delete a checklist item, it's going to essentially wipe any instance of that checklist item throughout the system. So it's an important fail-safe to check that you actually want that to happen, because it's going to remove data from records. But on hitting yes, obviously the checklist item is removed, and that just allows you to administer this area properly now in a way you couldn't do before. Last point to cover is to revisit the reports interface, and I can appreciate at this time you're probably sick of hearing me talk about it. Essentially, there's the reports option that's off the left navigation, and I can appreciate at this point you want to just get on with seeing a report being applied to this area. But just to revisit the work that's been done in this area, not just as part of the sprint prior, but also just the sprint gone as well. We've been doing further work relating to this just to lock that down so that it's fully ready to be deployed. Essentially, the way it will work is from the reports navigation that you can see there, you'll be given a list of the different reports that you can run in this area. On selecting a report, it will load the report controls that are set up with the report. This has been set up to be very much data driven, so that it can pass and deal with all of the different report parameters that have been set up, and that includes both our standard reporting that we've done prior, but also the custom reports that we've developed for clients as well. Those can all then be mapped into this mechanism, not in a simple drag and drop manner, but certainly in a way that is far more straightforward than obviously redesigning the entire reports interface. And also it allows to scope and scale in terms of adding further reporting controls and options relating to those reports as well. So the idea is that you'd select your report, the report controls load, you enter in your associated data within there, associated report criteria, and then from there, obviously that data is then loaded into report, and the report will appear within here. So hopefully, as part of the next sprint, I'll be in a position finally to be able to demonstrate that functionality properly and using the user activity report as the example report to be utilized within this area as the first one. And then once we have an established UI and obviously the reports interface is proven and in play, we'll begin mapping over those reports so that you can see them delivered throughout the course really of the next couple of months. On the topic of the summary reports and also the main overview page, which essentially is the home page from the both user and team perspective, several updates were made throughout the course of this sprint, mainly on loading speed for the summary reports in terms of improving the speed in which the data is collected and displayed. The same updates were applied to the team overview, plus the team overview report was updated to include stats relating to candidates sent and spec CV sent as well, and there's now options for different unit of measures relating to count and value in this report also. On the user overview, there's now the option to cater for decimal points within the dials as well. For those that didn't receive the email, I sent around a mailer last week regarding our plans for the GDPR legislation. Apologies if you didn't receive this. I used a mailing list which, as it turns out, was somewhat dated, but as a minimum, a contact from each client should have received this update. In any case, if you haven't received this, I'll include a link to the video in the email I send round, as well as it will be in the description of this video. Also, just to give an update on the training videos, the production of these has slowed in recent weeks as they needed to be scripted, but I am planning to push on with these in the next sprint, so you should see new videos being added every couple of days. Just to revisit where the training videos are held, you'll be able to find these in the help section that you find here, top right. On clicking on the help file, you have the access to all the different main entities, and within those entities there'll be training videos. If I hit pop out, actually that's probably a better way of looking at it. You'll be able to view the entire section here. You click on each main entity, and within each main entity area you have an overview of videos that have been recorded, all about the different functionalities obviously that can be run within that section. There's still many more videos to be recorded, and if you have any videos that you would like to see as a priority, please let me know and I'll make sure that's brought up the list. But essentially I'll be looking to add to this area over the course of the sprint with further videos on how to run different functionality within the system. As always, if you have any queries or feedback, please get in touch. I'll be keen to hear from you. We're certainly getting more and more feedback now as the user base of Colleague 7 increases, and this is really good as it's helping to drive each sprint plan. Also, for those using Colleague 7, feel free to submit your enhancement requests via the user voice integration. The next video will be the sprint plan for 17.10.01, and as always, this will contain a high-level overview on the items we intend to work on during this sprint. Thanks for watching.